viewers, in the previous lecture we talked about the causes of the agrarian revolution and uh, agrarian revolution, and today we will talk about the effects of the agrarian revolution on England. This topic is very important, like industrial revolution and agrarian revolution and those certain reforms that took place in the 19th century that we will talk about in the coming lectures. Before that, I must tell you, I took a long break and there were certain cogent reasons due to which I could not continue the phase of my lectures. So today I am trying to start again the series of those lecture, and will try to cover the according to the syllabus all those topics which could be effective for PMS and CSS PCS. In this regard, we have already uploaded the other three parts of the agrarian revolution, and today we will talk about the last the last part of the agrarian revolution, that is about the effects of the agrarian revolution. So there were certain effects of the agrarian revolution on England. The first one is the adaptation of new methods of agriculture. Uh, the peasants adopted new methods, and they began to use good seeds and rich manure, and thus due to these new methods both in agriculture like tractor, uh, some other tools which could help them in cultivation and reaping, and as well as uh, those crops which could produce more production, or could produce more, which could give more production to the peasants. And as a result of those new methods, meats and wool were produced in great quantity. How, like, they would produce, would cross certain animals as a result of uh, crossing those animals, and they would produce the hybrid animals. And same is the case with the crops as well, and they would produce, would prepare those crops which produce more production, which give more production, which were hybrid crops. So thus the wool and meat, the demand of wool and meat was also uh, there, which was immediately addressed by the production, and thus the peasants become rich. This was the first important effects of the agrarian revolution, that adaptation of new methods of agriculture, and which resulted to the richness or prosperity in the peasants. Second is increased demand of land. In order to be a member of parliament, one had to be owner of sufficient land which could yield 500 to 600 as a regular annual income. Uh, it was the time when there were no certain reforms introduced in the Parliament of England. Later on in the 19th century, in 1832, those reforms were introduced, which also checked the power of the landlords, and we will talk about it in detail. But why the demand of land was increased? A member if he wants to be want to be a member of parliament, he must have sufficient land, which they had put some, which they had defined certain criteria, and a member must have that amount of land. So the wealthy people of the cities, they are drifted towards villages, because the villages, the land was quite enough as compared to the cities. So those wealthy people drifted towards the villages to purchase farms or to purchase land, and thus cultivated land was in great demand. Second was the third effect is the reclamation of land. Uh, People began to put the barren and sandy land under cultivation. The sandy land was converted into fertile land, farms and merry lands, and marshy lands were dried up. So reclamation of land was another important effect of the Agrarian Revolution. And if we see Thomas Coke, Coke, Thomas Coke, who was influenced by the Agrarian Revolution, and he invested 5 lakh pound in converted uninhabited state into a fertile piece of land. So thus a reclamation of land was another important effects of the Agrarian Revolution. The fourth important effect of the Agrarian Revolution is application of big capital in agriculture. Rich landlords eliminated all the petty cultivators. They brought in their farms the most modern scientific machine and raised agriculture production to great extent. So the application of big capital in agriculture means those big landlords come to the field, and they started reclaiming the land, and they started cultivating the land through modern mechanism, through modern machines. As a result, the production, the fertility of the soil, all those were addressed and immediately fulfilled. The fifth important effect of the Agrarian Revolution was Enclosure Act for consolidation of land was passed. Enclosure Act for consolidation of land means that the land must be defined, it must be bordered and fenced so that the animal must not stray into it, and the passer also must not pass into it while making ways in those fields. So the Enclosure Act was passed to define the or to demarcate the boundaries of the fields, and also to secure them from the other yeah, from the outside factors leading to the demolishing of those fields. So the British Parliament passed many acts for the consolidation of land and other agriculture improvements. In this regard, from 1760 to 1800, about 1500 acts were passed regarding land acquisition, regarding land consolidation, and regarding land improvements. 1500 acts were passed in the meantime from 1760 to 1800. The sixth important effect of the Agrarian Revolution was deplorable condition of the peasants. This is the most important effect of the Agrarian Revolutions. The peasants or the peasants farmers, they were rendered jobless, and the petty farmer had to dispose of their land to rich farmer who were anxious to become either member of the parliament or justice of peace. So all those people, those poor peasants, farmers, they were disposed of their lands by the rich landlords, while it was mentioned, or it was made mandatory for a member to become a member of the parliament or justice of peace. Uh, he must have sufficient, yeah, enough amount of land, like those of 1700 as 500 to 600 annual income, which could they produce those lands, then a member could become a member of parliament. So while re-entering those petty farmers and peasants, their condition become very deplorable, because they had no other mean of employment. They were living a life of servitude and destitute. And those conditions were very well addressed by Oliver Goldsmith, a very famous English poet, in his poem The Deserted Village, where he talked about the conditions of those poor farmer and those poor peasants, where the big landlord would inflict those miseries and very harsh conditions, which were addressed by the poet, the Oliver Goldsmith, in his poem The Deserted Village. Similarly, Charles Dickens also talked about the conditions of the Industrial Revolution, as well as those of Agrarian Revolution, which made the lives of the poor peasants and farmer very miserable. So this was all about the effects of the Agrarian Revolution. And in the next topic, we will talk about the Industrial Revolution in detail. So thank you so much for watching.